You know this moment. You're dancing with someone. One song, maybe two, and somewhere in between it happens. Intense eye contact. Perfect flow. Your body feels light. Everything is just right. And afterwards, you stand on the dance floor and think that wasn't just a dance. There was something. And I'm willing to bet that you have a very specific person in mind right now.
Welcome to the Bachata Café, a podcast about dance, connection, and psychology.
I'm Eddie, and today we're opening up a topic that happens on every dance floor, but almost no one talks about openly. I've experienced it myself. I know people who have changed jobs because of it, to get closer to the bachata scene or to be there. I know people who fell in love with someone for 3 months and then after their first real conversation realized there was nothing there. And I know people, and maybe you're one of them, who go to socials specifically because that one person is there. Not because of the dancing, but because of the feeling. And I claim that 80% of all dance crushes are an illusion. Not because the feeling isn't real, but because it has the wrong cause. Today, I'll explain to you why, and I can prove it. Let me briefly describe a scene, and I want you to see if you recognize yourself in it. It's a lively Saturday night at a social. The music is sounding really good. You've been out dancing for quite a while already, and then suddenly someone asks you to dance, or you ask them, and this dance is different. This person leads differently or follows differently. And there's this moment when you're both on the same wavelength, when the body just understands without the need for words. And after the song, after the brief thank you, you stand there or you go back to the side, but you watch. You hope for another dance. You find excuses to be near that person. And could you please raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about? Exactly. Everyone. Me too. Multiple times. Dance crushes are one of the most unspoken topics in the bachata community. Everyone experiences them, and most people don't talk about it, at least not honestly. Because there's always this underlying uncertainty. Is this real? Does the other person feel it too? Or am I just imagining it? And most of the time, the honest answer is a bit of everything. And today, I'm going to break this down into several parts or chapters: environment, chemistry, illusion, and the twist. And at the end, there will be a reality check. So let's go. Chapter number 1, the environment. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Bachata parties are not a neutral space. Whether consciously or not, they are almost perfectly designed to create feelings of infatuation. Dim lighting, romantic music, physical closeness, leading and surrender, synchronized movements, lots of attractive people, social energy, and on top of that, a social context where closeness is not only allowed but expected. And you don't just experience steps, but also tension, longing, affirmation, desire, letting go, presence. And the result? Dance crushes. Short-term infatuation. Projection of depth, where in reality there was only intensity. And this isn't just a dating club thing, but your nervous system doesn't know that. Your body doesn't interpret these signals as dance. Yes, it was just a dance. It reads them as intimacy, as connection, or even as a possibility. And then the brain goes into the mode of, oh, something could happen here. And then all it takes is one good dance and your mind starts writing a story. My body doesn't clearly distinguish between this is a dance and this is an intimate situation. I know it's not logical, but it's biological. And that's not a weakness, that's evolution. And bachata triggers exactly these ancient signals every time with every good dance. But what exactly is happening there? Let me break it down. Chapter 2, the chemistry. Biology explains what happens in your body during those 3 minutes. And once you understand that, you'll look at the dance floor completely differently. 3 things happen all at once. First, physical closeness and bonding signals. In bachata, 2 people touch each other for several minutes. During the intro, you get closer, first physical contact, first closeness. For the brain, this is no longer just normal social contact. And when people touch, real, safe, respectful touch, the body releases oxytocin. And the same thing is released when mothers hold their children, or when old friends hug, or when 2 people see each other again after a long time. And that's important. Oxytocin is not a love drug. It doesn't create feelings. It's an amplifier. It intensifies what is already there. So if you already have closeness, music, and attraction, oxytocin amplifies exactly that. And that's the reason why a good dance can sometimes feel like more or feel more intense than a first one. Because the brain says, this person is close, this person is safe, this person triggers something in me. The second point is seamless synchronization and connection. And then when 2 bodies synchronize, when the breathing aligns, when the movement flows, when I start a wave and you go along with it, when I give the impulse for a turn and she turns, when our hip movements go in the same direction, psychologists call this interpersonal synchrony. When we synchronize with someone, we unconsciously feel more closeness, more trust, more affection for that person. And nervous systems adapt to each other. Movement rhythm is aligned and shared. The timing is controlled together. And that creates a feeling of we're in the same flow. And your brain interprets this feeling as connection. And this isn't just a coincidence of romance, it's evolution. Because synchronizing with another person was historically a sign of safety and connection. And bachata, especially bachata sensual, is literally designed for this. Leading and following a bodies in dialogue, so you're not weak or naive if you get butterflies after dancing. You are a human being with a nervous system that does exactly what it is supposed to do. Thirdly, if you like the podcast, follow the Bachata Café and become part of our bachata community. The real problem, dopamine. Music can activate the dopamine-controlled reward system, especially when it creates tension, anticipation, and emotional resolution. If you combine that with movement and an attractive person, it happens quickly. An intense positive feeling in the body. And your brain stores that. It feels extremely good. And then comes the mistake that almost everyone makes. You think this person feels good. Your body doesn't know whether this person is really right for you. Your body only knows that it felt good. And that's the moment when the illusion begins. And here's another layer that most people forget. Many bachata songs work so well because they mirror exactly this experience. Longing, tension, surrender, loss of control, seduction, pain, hope. And the music doesn't just describe emotions, it amplifies the emotions that the dancing body is already producing anyway. And that's why bachata feels to many like listening to music, feeling emotions, projecting stories, all at the same time. And bachata doesn't create love out of nothing, but it can very convincingly give your nervous system the feeling that something special is happening right now. And with that, we come to chapter 3, the illusion. And this is where it gets interesting. And for some, uncomfortable. There's a term in psychology called misattribution of arousal. Simply put, you're emotionally activated, your body is on, and your brain looks for an explanation. And the simplest explanation is the person in front of you. But the more honest explanation is the music, the atmosphere, the movement, and the moment. And then something else happens that even fewer people understand. You don't fall in love with the person. You fall in love with yourself. In this situation, let me explain what I mean by that. You dance well. You feel good. You radiate. The other person responds better. The dance gets better. You feel even better. And this is a self-reinforcing cycle. In the end, you think, wow, this person is something special. But in truth, you were the special one in that moment, in that context, with that music. And let me make this more concrete. When you have an extraordinary dance with someone, several things happen at the same time. The music is emotional, the touch is pleasant, the movement is synchronized, and in that moment, you are not lost in your thoughts. You are open, present, vulnerable in a way you rarely are in everyday life. And that is an extraordinary state. And your brain associates this state with the person standing in front of you. But, and this is the crucial point, this profound state of being actually had very little to do with that specific person. It had everything to do with the music, with the fleeting beauty of the moment, and with your own innate ability to open yourself up completely. You see, the other person was merely the external trigger, not the underlying cause. And I call this the dance floor projection effect. We project onto the other person what we felt during the dance, and we think, this person makes me feel this way. But to be more honest, in this moment, with this music, with this atmosphere, that's how I felt. And that's a huge difference. And that's why it happens so often. You meet this person outside of the social over coffee in a normal conversation, and something just feels off. The magic is gone, and you don't know why. You wonder if you were mistaken. No, you weren't mistaken. You simply realized that the feeling was tied to the context, not to the person. And that doesn't make the experience any less beautiful, but it explains why dance crushes are so rarely turn into real relationships. And also why that's okay. And now the darkest part of this topic. Some people use exactly these mechanisms, consciously or unconsciously. The result is the same. They give you extreme connection in the dance. A lot of eye contact, closeness, tension, and those little moments that feel so meaningful. And afterwards, distance, coldness, nothing. And that's called intermittent reinforcement. Reward and withdrawal alternating. And that's the same neurochemical principle as in toxic relationships. Like with gambling addiction, like with social media, which sometimes gives you a like and sometimes doesn't. And suddenly you're no longer going to socials for the dancing. You're going for that one feeling, not the person, the feeling. And that's the moment when a dance crush stops being fun and becomes dangerous. And maybe one last bit of context that intensifies everything a little more. Let's take a little detour to the topic of festivals. Festivals last several days in a row. It's the same people in a confined space, more intensity, less everyday life, or almost no everyday life at all, more emotion, and the brain forms bonds more quickly because this consistency and intensity creates or mimics a sense of closeness and connection. But as soon as you're back in everyday life, there's no dance floor, no music anymore, no dancing, no context. Then you really look at the sober reality and ask yourself, what was that actually? And now we come to the fourth chapter of our story, the real unexpected twist. And this is a point I don't want to withhold from you. Not every strong connection on the dance floor is an illusion. Many people confuse chemical activation, synchronization, and context with true romantic compatibility. In other words, an intense dance proves attraction, but not automatically relationship compatibility. And that's the interesting psychological gap. Yes, on the dance floor it can feel real, but outside the dance floor the same dynamic can completely fizzle out. And that's not a contradiction, they're just two different realities. And here is the truth about bachata that I find very important. Bachata is not a problem, on the contrary. It is one of the most intense social experiences you can have. An intense dance is not proof of real compatibility. It is proof of good timing, physical coordination, and emotional flow, and a perfectly activated nervous system. Bachata does not create love out of nothing, but it can very convincingly make the nervous system feel like something special is happening. And that's not a criticism. That's the most beautiful thing about this dance. And that's why we come to chapter 5, the reality check. How do you recognize whether it's real? There are 5 questions you can ask yourself. Question number 1. Would I find this person interesting even without the music, without the dance, without this lighting, the surroundings? If the answer is uncertain, then it was just the context. Question number 2. What is this person like outside of the dance? Did you have a conversation afterwards? Did it feel just as lively as the dance? If yes, then maybe there's something there. But many realize the dance was real, but the conversation was so average. Why? Because during the dance, no personality is conveyed, no values, no reality, just the feeling. And just as important is how this person behaves outside the dance floor. Is there any initiative from her? Clarity? Is there also interest without music? And if that's missing, then unfortunately, it was just a moment, no connection, no bond in that sense. Question number 3. How does it feel when this person dances with someone else? If you can hardly stand it, then it's usually ego and possessiveness. That's not love. But if you think I'm happy that she's having a good time, then that's a good sign. Question number 4. How long does the feeling last? Does it fade after the next social event? Then it was just a moment. Is it still there after 2 weeks? Then it's worth taking a closer look. Question number 5. And this is the most important question. Am I truly interested in this person? Or am I caught up in the feeling I had with her? And this question separates 90% of dance crushes from real attraction. And then, because it also has to be fair, the counterpoint. Sometimes it's real. There are people who have found their life partners through bachata. The dance floor can be a place of genuine connection. Because there you are as open, as present, as unfiltered as you rarely are in everyday life. People who truly fit together notice it there as well. But the path from a dance crush to a real connection always leads out of the dance floor into a real conversation, into everyday life, into reality. And those who don't do that remain in the illusion. And it's beautiful, but it doesn't grow. And that's why dance crushes are as much a part of bachata as the music itself. They are not a sign of weakness or naivety. They show that you were present, that you opened yourself up, that you allowed real context or real contact. You did. And that is very valuable, even if nothing comes of it. But understand what is happening. When you fall in love during bachata, it's not with the person. You fall in love with the state you created together. And most people chase after it without realizing that this feeling can be reproduced. Also with others, also with yourself alone. If you learn what really triggers it, but the next time you notice after a dance that there's something there, yes, then ask yourself, was it the person or was it the moment? And if you're honest, you usually already know the answer. A question for the comments, and I want the most honest answers. Was your last dance crush about the person or the feeling? Write it down in the comments below. I read everything. This was the Bachata Café. I'm Eddie. See you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, send it to a dancer from your bachata community. Write in the comments what your thoughts are on today's topic. And if you want to learn more about bachata, connection, and psychology, follow the Bachata Café.